On the 1st of January 1492, Ferdinand and Isabella, dressed in elaborate Moorish outfits, which they'd had especially made. With great pomp and circumstance, they entered the Palace of Alhambra and took the keys to the city. As the Muslim ruler Boabdil left in tears, it was said that his mother spat out at him, "Do not weep like a woman, for that which you cannot defend like a man." Isabella's victory in Granada put an end to an incredible society. In the 700 years that they'd been in Europe, the Muslims of Al-Andalus had built a culture which was the very pinnacle of civilized life, influencing Europe in ways that we're only just beginning to understand. And Isabella would endeavour to ensure that Islam in the West would never enjoy such a relationship again. A few years after Ferdinand and Isabella came to power, they set up an organisation that affected the most extreme form of religious control that Europe has ever known. The Inquisition. The purpose of the Inquisition was to track down and eliminate anyone who wasn't an Orthodox member of the Catholic Church. Those found guilty of heresy were subjected to a sinister public ceremony called an auto de fe. In this eerie ritual, vestiges of which are still performed today, the guilty were forced to repent their sins while their accusers watched on, hidden under hooded caps. The sinners were then detained. Some were burnt at the stake. Most had their homes and livelihoods taken from them. In 1526, the Spanish Inquisition came to Granada to deal with the Muslim problem. Muslims were labelled heretics and given a stark choice: convert to Catholicism, leave the country, or be punished. The Muslims of Granada were segregated from the rest of the population. Their ghetto survives as the old quarter of the city today. It's a fantastic house. Thank you. Many of the houses that the Muslims were forced out of are still standing. Antonio Orihuela lives in one. It's almost inverted, because you don't have any windows looking out onto the street, but the focus is in the middle, here on the courtyard.
Yes, the courtyard is the center of the family life. So all the doors and windows are open to the courtyard and closed to the street. Privacy was one of the most important characteristics of these houses. Outside the house, they were Christian. They went to the church with the priest, they celebrate the wedding in the Christian way, but then later they came home to celebrate again the wedding in the Muslim style.
What happened though when the Inquisition came knocking on the door?
Well, as you see, these houses have the vent entry. So from outside, even if the door is open, it's not possible to see what happens in the courtyard.
The Inquisitors went from door to door, seeking out those they still suspected of being Muslim. A number of civic leaders had already been expelled, and so often it was only women and children left. They herded them up and held them in churches by night so that they could be tried the following morning. Some of the women cried out that they were like lambs being taken to the slaughter and wished that instead they'd been allowed to die in their own home. The Inquisition was so brutally efficient that within 20 years, all Muslims in Spain had been forcibly converted to Catholicism. But this wasn't enough. Many still continued to practice their faith in private. And so, in 1609, the Spanish crown ordered the removal of all Muslims from Spain.
Perhaps the most shocking thing in the expulsion is they were not actually expelling Arabs, nor were they expelling Berbers. The huge majority of the people that were being expelled by blood, by DNA, if you will, were as Iberian as their Christian cousins in the north who were kicking them out of the peninsula. It's really it's an enormously different vision of what the expulsions were and what they meant when we realize that the people who were being thrust out were as native to the peninsula as the Christian kings.
Why do you think the Catholic authorities felt they had to expel the Moors in 1609?
The Spanish Empire, for it was indeed by then the empire, simply felt pressed in so many different directions. They were very much afraid of the Turks, who were in fact raiding from North Africa and raiding along the southern coast of Spain. They were fighting wars still in the Americas. It was one internal problem that they simply could not deal with any longer.
In 10 years, over 250,000 Muslims were expelled from Spain. Forbidden to take any possessions with them, most sought refuge in North Africa.